Welcome to another depressing episode of the Purdue Basketball Beat. With me is Anish and Jay Money. What's up, guys?
Hey. Hi.
Boy, it's that episode.
Hi.
This is actually not an episode of the Purdue Basketball Beat. This is a therapy session.
Oh my God!
A joint therapy session.
As if our group chats haven't been completely enough therapy sessions. I don't even know.
Wild emotional swings. Half of us should be on medicine.
Half of it.
The other half already is.
Oh man!
I'm glad we both questioned that half at the same time.
You know what? I'm glad that we're recording this now and not immediately after the game.
Well, I mean, we maybe everyone's familiar with this app that you youngins like to use, but the Voxer app just allowed us to all
official sponsor of the Purdue Basketball League.
That's right. It allows us to all voice chat with each other. There was some savable emotional outbursts, I think, is what I would say. I'm really talking about myself. I'm not usually the most emotional, but about sports and about Purdue. But man, I was furious.
There were some moments.
Gosh, I was pissed.
There were some bad words thrown around. Definitely.
I think you actually were pretty angry.
I was pretty pissed.
You were angry.
I was. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Are we getting into this?
Yeah.
Are we doing this?
Yeah, just
Here's the thing. This season.
What should we talk about? Let's see.
This season, everything went fine. No one got hurt. There were no personality conflicts. The team was coming together. They were playing the best. The draw was perfect. The draw was perfect. Every variable that Purdue cannot control was set perfectly in Purdue's favor. The only thing that got messed up was the things that Purdue could control. And it's like Purdue will draw like Duke for the next 10 years. I mean, this was perfect. This was perfect. And they screwed it all up. And
there's so many angles you could go at, right? Like you talk about that, the missed up, like not even getting into what Purdue did wrong. But I said this going into the tournament. I said, you know what will really piss you all off? Anish, I think I said this to you, is if Purdue loses early. I didn't know they'd lose that early, like the first day of the tournament. But
yeah, that'd be stupid.
If they lose early and then Michigan State also bounces out, and then the bracket is wide open.
Because who's scared of Virginia? Who is scared of Virginia?
Nobody. And I think most people who thought if Purdue was going to put together any kind of a run, it was Michigan State that was going to get in the way of it.
Yes.
Not Virginia, right? Now they could lose. That's not to say it was going to be a walkover, obviously, but nobody was afraid of them. And you look at it now, and even that though. See, even if that had happened, even if they had gotten to Virginia and lost, that would have been a loss in the Sweet 16 to a 1 seed who could have been on their way to the Final Four. And while it's not like the end-all, be-all goal, I think it's still something at the beginning of the season we said if that happened, that's a good season. It's a good year.
Hey, Sweet 16, right?
No, but
we're building in the right direction.
Right. That's a step forward from the last 6 years. Right? You named some of the things that a really brilliant guy wrote about on this website called Boiled Sports about how there were no excuses this year for Painter and company. You just named a bunch of them. There were no catastrophic injuries. There were no suspensions. There were, aside from AJ at the beginning of the season, there were no malcontents. There was no reason. There was nothing to pin this on except crappy coaching at the end. And I'm just going to say it. I know that Ryan Smith and others will say that makes you not a real boiler if you dare to question anything, because Lord knows if you didn't play basketball at the highest possible level, you don't have a valid opinion on.
Because no one ever criticizes anything that they don't directly work on. And it's impossible to be educated on any one topic. So.
Well, and of course, if you criticize something, it means that you don't support it. I just want to make that clear.
Right.
Criticizing.
We're all secretly IU fans. We could not be more happy than we are.
No, but I think I wrote a lot about this, so I don't know how much more I can say. I feel as though, we agreed early in the season that I think even you agreed, Anish, that this was a big year for Matt Painter. This was important as far as proving that he could bring it together. Now that he had everything, he had the talent, he had the big guys, he had, I know there's excuses made that he didn't have people keep going back to that point guard thing, and I know I'm jumping around now, but like people keep going back to that, like, oh, inconsistent point guard play. I thought PJ was fine this year. I really did. I don't think he was a huge liability. He's one of the best. He took care of the basketball. What do you want from your point guard? Opportunistic shooting, take care of the basketball, know your role, stay in your lane, whatever expression you want to use. I don't think that he was some sort of liability.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it had anything to do with the point guard play. I don't know. It's frustrating. I tried to write it. I tried to write it that night. Well, so I tried to write this post that night, which was like the worst, or like the most gut punchy losses, like the most gut punchy sports losses I've experienced, right, in my short time on this earth. And this was up there, but then it just didn't come together right. I wrote like a bunch of words, but it came through as too whiny, right? It's hard to write something like that in the moment and try to make it, a little bit more broadly readable, but like just everything about that, every little aspect about that loss was awful. Like the fact that it's just going to go down in history. It's a trivia question now. Hey, Raphael Davis and A.J. Hammonds never won a tournament game. Like that's it. Like that's going to be. You're going to answer that sometime as a Purdue fan.
I thought you were gonna say something about the, like what was 538 saying? It was
99.6. 99.6.
Up 13 with what, 3.5 to go?
We've done it twice.
With 3.5. Yeah.
We've done it twice. We've done it 2 years in a row now. It literally every aspect of
the last 3 times they've been in the tournament. Go back to 12. And I know everyone likes to say, "Oh, Kansas, it was Kansas. You can lose to Kansas," and yes, you can. But they were up double digits with 4 minutes to go.
Let's throw that out. Let's throw
that out.
Because it's a different era. It's a completely different era. No, what I am saying is that every aspect of this loss was so frustrating because it was the same damn thing we saw last year. It was the exact same thing, down to the 13-point deficit with 3 minutes left, losing in an overtime, right? To a team that had no business beating Purdue. Right? It's 2 years in a row. And now layer that on top of the year that we had, layer that on top of recruiting Caleb Swanigan to come and play, away from Tom Izzo, by the way. Layer that on top of the fact that I think every Purdue fan, by the time the year rolled around, every Purdue fan, like 2 of their favorite Boilermakers ever, were Ray Davis and A.J. Hammonds. Right? And so this is their last rodeo. This is how they go out. And so layer that on top of the fact that nothing went against that. We had no injury. Purdue had no injury problems. Like you were saying, Mike, Purdue had no injury problems. Everything broke right for them. They had a really nice draw. Little Rock, Arkansas, like we talked about last week and like had been written on CBS Sports by Sam Vecini and a bunch of people on the internet. They were a tough draw, especially for a team like Purdue, but Purdue should have been able to handle them.
I mean, a tough draw. Like, this is a team. You beat the Arkansas Little Rocks, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah, sure, their strength matched up against Purdue's weakness, but there's not a player on that. I mean, outside of their point guard, it'd be position by position. Purdue had a distinct advantage. You're not supposed to lose this.
Most of the second half, though, it looked exactly like you probably would have drawn it up because, as you said, it's a favorable matchup for Little Rock against a team like Purdue, right? The strengths and weaknesses match up in a certain way. But because of the superior athletes and because of, so it's close for a half. And then Purdue just starts to, I don't know, in my head, and Anish, you were probably thinking this too, because you start thinking about the post game as you're watching it happen and think about what you're going to be saying. I think you probably would have been saying eventually Purdue just impressed, they just impose their will and just ground it down. And all of a sudden you looked up and it was 13, 14 points. And it almost didn't feel like that. It almost felt like this was close the whole way. But look at that. Now it's 63-49. This game, how could it not be over at that point? And the answer is Purdue still can't handle pressure. They couldn't handle pressure.
I mean, I think Dowd and I talked about this on one of the podcasts as we were admiring Xavier, who just lost in heartbreaking fashion. We're recording this on Sunday night, like moments after Wisconsin just daggered their hearts. But Xavier plays with no fear, right? I mean, like that's one of the things that Dowd and I were talking about. That when they're on a press, it doesn't matter if they're up by 50 or down by 3. With 30 seconds left, they're attacking the basket. No matter what, if they get semi-transition, they're attacking the basket. They're not afraid to make the extra pass. They go to the right spots on the floor. When Purdue gets it, they dribble. They dribble and they dribble and they dribble and they dribble.
And then 8 seconds are left on the clock, and they try to run some play. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's it. You're absolutely right. You can.
It's like It's Johnny Hill getting the ball on the wing. Maybe isn't the most opportune thing, but if he gets it on a 2-on-1, who cares? Like, attack. Johnny Hill's a good player. Like, attack the basket. So many of those kind of plays, like with 4 minutes left in regulation.
Yeah.
So many of those plays were given up, and that's the most frustrating thing. Not, and we'll get to the, not changing lineups up and not giving AJ a rest and not getting AJ the ball and all of that. All of that, to a point, there could be reasons for it. Flawed or not, there could be reasons for it. But to me, there's no reason to play completely scared. Right. Like, that's the biggest thing, is that you play scared, you tighten up. Even Brian Newbert on GBI has written this all year. Purdue just tightens up and down the stretch when things matter. They don't, and that's it. It's game.
And that what you just said right there. And I know people are going to accuse me of beating up on Painter, but that's an embodiment of your leadership, right?
Absolutely.
Someone is not instilling a confidence or a calmness. Like, there are stories all the time about great coaches, and sometimes you hear it, when you get into the NBA huddles, like they'll show it on TV and TNT, because you know how much NBA I like to watch. But they'll show, like, stuff about, guys talking about, all right, we just took their best. They can't keep doing that. Or they'll say stuff like that where it's like, well, they could keep doing what they just did. But I'm going to tell these guys that, guys, you took their best punch, all right? They can't keep doing this to you. They say something funny. Like, they calm the guys down. I don't get the vibe. Painter looks nervous.
Well, Painter did. So it was reported that Painter, either, I don't know if he said it or if somebody else reported it or what, but in one of the games, I think the Michigan game, when Purdue looked like they could be tightening up, like, right. Painter made a joke in the huddle, and then they got loosened up and then, put away the team, and that was that. And nobody remembers that game because nobody cares because we won and we were supposed to win and we just put them away. And that's what was missing. I mean, like, that was completely what was missing.
Well, and he did that before when A.J. Hammonds, remember this is a well-reported story, hit 2 free throws to win the game, and he asked him about the pizza toppings. But there's a big difference between a game in February and a game in March, and Painter looked like he was shitting bricks out there. And maybe that's me reading into it. This could be armchair psychology here, but all teams embody their head coach. Look at a Bob Huggins team or a Mike Krzyzewski team. These are or a John Calipari team, right? I mean, not that Painter's in that league, but those teams embody the spirit of their head coach. And so when Painter's acting nervous,
even Tom Crean.
Yeah, for better or for worse, absolutely. And when your coach is nervous and licking his lips and sweating and just kind of walking up and down, like, the team tightens up. And you can't run the clock out with 3.5 minutes left. You can't hold the ball for 3.5 minutes. Run the offense. Run the offense. You do what you did to get up by 13 points. Do that again, and then do that again until the buzzer hits.
So, Nisha alluded to us getting to this. There are some people who, now AJ was clearly gassed late in the game. So if you want to debate, and I think there's merit to saying, how did Haas not ever get back in the game after that unintentional flagrant? But that's not okay. That's a separate thing. If AJ was unable to contribute, then that's another reason he probably should have gotten a rest. Even if it was in overtime, if he's unable to contribute, if that's a reason the ball wasn't in his hands, then that's another issue. Now, let's assume that he is able to contribute, that is not sheer exhaustion. How does the ball not end up in his hands?
Well, so that more was, so I have an answer to that, but it's not satisfying. The answer is that they were triple teaming him. I mean, like they were.
No, that's fair.
They were straight up triple teaming him in overtime and double overtime, as they should have. It was a good plan. Their half court, it wasn't their press. Their full court press did not get Purdue. Their full court, you look at it, I think there were only two of Purdue's turnovers, one or two of Purdue's turnovers were committed because of full court pressure. Right. The rest was that trapping half court nonsense, which gets Purdue. The biggest thing was that they were just standing AJ there. So that's what I have a problem with. Not that Painter wasn't telling them to get the ball into the post. He was. He absolutely was. But the problem is that he was just standing there. Like, he had AJ just standing there. He didn't have him running off of any screens. He didn't have any ball reversals. And then AJ goes to the other side, and then quickly all of a sudden you have a little window. He was just standing there, and he was exhausted, and there was a double and triple team.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So
why don't you play Swanigan at the same time there? Put two bigs in. And take a little post burden off of him.
Was Biggie being punished for turning the ball over or something? What the hell?
No, it was.
Who knows?
No, so they were. That's a philosophical thing, right? And this isn't. First of all, I'd like to get this out of the way. I am definitely probably the most pro Painter person on World Sports. That being said, that was the worst coaching performance Matt Painter has had ever, and it's not really that close. I don't think. I mean, like that was the worst coaching job that Painter has ever done. But the not having Biggie on the floor, again, you can justify because that's a philosophical way of attacking, or a philosophical preference of attacking a press. Either you play one big, 1 in, 4 out, or you play high-low. Or you have two bigs doing the high-low thing. And so he felt, for one reason or another, he felt that having the shooters on there, I guess really he picked Klein over Biggie, right?
I have another question. Because, he picked Klein over Biggie. He decided, and I'm not trying to cut you off there, but he decided to shoot. He decided if they're gonna sag down on AJ, we're gonna have to kill them by hitting shots from the outside, and I'm actually okay with that thinking because that's why you recruited these shooters, right? Exactly. I'm fine with that, and they didn't shoot great, but they didn't shoot atrociously, so it almost won the game, so fine. Okay, but then my next question is that the reason? Is that the reason that for the first time all year we're gonna bench both point guards?
I don't know about that. I have no idea.
That goes to your point about it being one of the worst coaching performances.
I mean, like
because here's the thing: you dance with who brung you, right? What brung Purdue to the tournament? Two bigs, big team.
Well,
a 6'8" 3, a 6'9" 4, and a 7' center. That's what brought you to the tournament.
And a point guard, PJ, who didn't turn the ball over much this year.
And you know what? Good, bad, or indifferent, when things are down, you go with what worked. You go with what won you 26 games. You don't switch boats midstream. You don't ask Matthias to start bringing the ball, Davis to start bringing the ball. Why? Those guys are not going to be able to beat a half-court trap. I mean, Thompson had his problems, and so did Johnny Hill. But, I mean, you got to ride with your guys. How do you, I brought this up in the thing, but how do you feel if you're the point guard and your ass is glued to the bench for the last 15 minutes of the game?
I mean, it's fair to ask if you're Biggie, too. How do you – I mean,
and
like
Haas.
Biggie –
and
Haas not as much.
AJ was in, but AJ was in place of Haas. So I don't have a huge issue with that. Yeah. I think that Haas should have played somewhere in the last 5 minutes of the game to give AJ – a blow. I think that's what probably should have happened. That's maybe in hindsight. Maybe they were thinking, we're going to win this game right now. They probably were thinking, this is not going to overtime. We have to close this out now. So
you ride or die with AJ.
Right. I have less of an issue with AJ playing till he had nothing left. I have a bigger issue with Biggie not getting back in the game all that time, and with the point guard situation. And then And yet, so we're complaining about that, and yet, who takes the last drive? Johnny Hill.
Well, and so that's what has me furious, because there were so many Johnny Hill, like, really, Johnny Hill's the one? Well, like, he almost won us the game against Michigan State, and like, it was, some people didn't like that take.
And you guys shouted me down that day. That's not good. That's like that's the last option.
But it's different. But it's different because he didn't play. He was cold. I mean, like, there's a difference between Johnny Hill, the guy who almost single-handedly, out of nowhere, won the game for Purdue against Michigan State, because he was damn good down the stretch.
Yes.
And there's a difference between Johnny Hill not playing for a half hour and then coming in for the last possession of the game, and then you give him the ball. I mean, like,
Painter said.
Well, how about having Matthias take the ball out in a situation where Arkansas, the announcers brought this up several times. He's the best free throw shooter, and he's the one inbounding the ball. Instead, the ball goes to Ryan Klein, who's 6 for 11 on the year, and he goes 1 for 1.
Yeah, but I mean, I trust Klein in that situation. I mean, and the other thing
is,
a
true freshman who's shooting 67% from the
on 11 attempts. I mean, and it's Klein.
Okay, still, but the point is, these little things, and some are not so little. They all add up, and then you're wondering, 3 minutes and 33 seconds left. You're up 13, and you lose the game. It still blows my mind.
It's awful.
So here's the thing. Painter is pretty self-aware. I think that's one of his strengths. Unbelievably self-aware, and he's made noticeable when there's a problem with the team in the past. He's always at least tried to address it. In the Baby Boilers era, rebounding was a big issue, and so he brought in a bunch of bigs who he thought might be able to rebound. They didn't work out, but he still tried to address it. Shooting was a problem, and so he recruits Matthias and Klein and all these folks. This end of the game, this alpha dog mentality that no one on the team seemed to have, the seizing up, the lack of a strong point guard, that's a noticeable problem. Is this something that Painter can address through recruiting, or is this like a soul-searching moment for him?
It might actually have already been fixed for next year, if we're going to talk about next year, because I think Carson Edwards is that guy, and Vince Edwards. And Vince Edwards will be that guy. I mean, this is partially like 50% my Vince Edwards bias, but Vince freezing up at the end was pretty bad, but I don't think he ever forgets that, right? I mean, and that play too, it's Painter didn't call a timeout.
You have 2 timeouts. You have 2 timeouts. Burn a timeout, make sure everyone's on the same page, and you still have another timeout left in case things go to hell.
There were over 4 seconds left. That's enough time to drive the length of the floor.
I don't know. Do you remember who inbounded the ball then? Was it Ray? Was it?
I think it was still Matthias. I think he took out all of us.
So that was another mistake. I mean, like that. So the person who inbounds the ball should know that a timeout is being called, and then Painter should be the one to call the timeout before.
Yeah, but he probably thought but he may have thought you inbound it, you race up the court and call timeout at midcourt, right?
You have to communicate that to your players. That's your job.
I'm just saying the guy inbounding it probably doesn't know that. He's probably thinking
the coach calls the timeout. Ball goes through the hoop. He talks to the ref.
It's just
5 feet away from him.
Everybody wasn't on the same page. Everybody wasn't on the same page.
That's a hell of a time for that to happen.
The guy inbounding the ball, the guy receiving the ball, and the coach should be on the same page always. Right? I mean, this is what you practice.
But isn't that, to your point, that's what you practice. That's an automatic situation. The game has just been tied with 4 seconds to go, so you have a legitimate shot. Automatically, and you have 2 timeouts, you're not going to just rush it up the floor.
And this is a scenario that most teams practice. This is a scenario I'm sure Purdue practices. This isn't to suggest that Purdue never practiced it. This is just a situation that everybody.
It's emblematic of the issue of Purdue losing their mind in the most.
Man.
And I'm not even mad at Vince Edwards because I think he's going to be a monster. His last 2 years, he is going to be unbelievable. But
I don't know. It's super furious. Infuriating. I mean, that was. So again, because there are things to be critical of Matt Painter doesn't mean that we all think he should be fired and all this and blah and whatever. And it also doesn't mean that every single decision he made down the stretch was a bad one. But there were some unforgivable ones. I mean, like, an unforgivable meaning like it was a terrible game. And speaking in post-game, like Greg Doyle wrote that column. I think everybody at this point has read it. Defending Painter, which was weird, but it's Greg Doyle, so what are you going to do? But he had some good Painter quotes. He got some really good Painter quotes. And if there's one thing, I mean, Michael alluded to it earlier, if there's one thing that Painter is, it's almost forthright to a fault, right? He's truthful and upfront to a fault. Mm-hmm. And he was very self-critical, but that still doesn't take away some of the frustrations that you feel. And again, I don't think that Purdue should go and get somebody. I don't think Purdue can go and hire Brad Stevens right now. Like, right? Matt Painter is the guy. We want him. I think all of us would love nothing more than to see Matt Painter win a national title at Purdue. Like, I think that would make us the happy. Like, for Matt Painter to be the one to do it, I think all of us would be so happy. And I'll let you speak on that, Justin, because I think you're the most critical of him, and I think you would be
the most critical.
No. Within the six of us at Boiled Sports, you probably are and maybe Ryan, maybe Ryan, maybe down on this one has a little bit.
A little more.
But I think it's even you would be ecstatic that Matt Painter.
I'm not anti-Painter in general. I've said this before. But I don't think there's anything wrong with calling a spade and saying, I'm going to be critical of something that I think is. It's like again, I'll draw the analogy to children. If your kid is not that bright, and they're getting C's and the occasional B, then you pat them on the back. But when you know they're capable of more, or you expect more, you are a little harder on them. And I know this is nowhere near as important as child raising. I'm just drawing the analogy to try to make it on a totally different topic and say being critical when you know more can happen. It's actually the opposite of suggesting someone should be fired. I'm saying all along what I've been saying as a critic, as a critiquer, as a person who critiques Matt Painter, is that I expect more. This guy makes a lot of money. He demanded that, which I was fine with. We were, if you go way back in the archives, we were on the Painter train when he was threatening to leave from Missouri. And we were hard on Purdue for not paying the man, for saying he's guys. What's that?
Rightly so. I think that's still. Yeah.
We were like, you know what? This is what you need to do. This is the guy. So I don't think that's changed. I just think it's and 26, whatever it was it 26 wins this year? 27, whatever it was. That's 26. Terrific. But and there's always this black and white, right? Where it's like, well. Oh, who's going to do better? I'm not. Oh, there we go. Michael's swigging back beer.
Hey, listen, man. This conversation needs a little bit.
There's always this knee-jerk, and there are a lot of people right now who are in agreement, more than I've seen in a while, agreeing with our take that more should be expected of Coach Painter. But there's always the people who give you the, who are you going to get to replace him? Who can do better? That's not the point. I don't care who can do better. I
want him to do better.
Exactly. Thank you. I want him to do better. I expect more out of him. The talent is there. The resources are there. The salary's there. There's nothing to, connected to this. You talked about him being forthright to a fault. Did you see the quote that I put on Twitter today from Ray that I had not seen?
Mm-hmm. About him letting Painter down?
He said, I feel like I've let Painter down for 4 years.
Ugh. No.
It's gut. Just no, Ray. No. I said, someone hug Ray. He's giving it everything. The guy has no knees left. He's an old dad now. He's got nothing left. He gave Painter everything he had. And I have not seen one person, even though Ray did not have a good year, I have not seen one person be hateful or critical of him because they know his heart is,
He came into Purdue as a scorer, right? He was basically a Bryson Scott type, who all he did was score points for Southside and then a little bit up north of that school that I forget. And then he hasn't really done that at Purdue. He completely changed his game to focus on being a defensive stopper. He gave Purdue all that you could possibly ask of a student athlete, and could not be happier that he was a Boilermaker. So he did not let anybody down. He did everything.
None of these guys did.
None of them did.
I don't think there's any player on this team that. I mean, there's some guys who maybe, Kendall Stevens didn't have a great year. There were some circumstances, obviously, but even still, I don't think there were some jerks who were criticizing him. But you know what? It happens. Sometimes a guy falls out of the rotation for whatever reason. I don't know.
This year was a coaching issue. I think you can say in previous years there were personnel issues, personality issues, talent issues. Especially when we're talking about the 2011 class.
Yeah.
And talking about the Ronnie Johnson. You talk about all those transfers. You can say that's not Painter's fault, right? I mean, no. or it's a little bit his fault.
Some of it is, but clearly he made promises to Ronnie Johnson, but we don't need to rehash all that. I mean,
no, but this is in-game coaching. Exactly. This was him screwing things up.
Jonathan, I was having a conversation about this because I was bored in an airport, and that's what happens when I'm bored in airports is that I start tweeting out nonsense. But I was just
only when you're in airports. Yeah, exactly. There we go.
Exactly. I travel a lot.
We're both looking for the perfect hammer there.
But. So Ian Hoyer came up with, crystallized what I've been thinking for a while, which is, he said, I think Painter actually prepares his team very well for games, but his struggles start when the ball is tipped. And I think that is really, I actually do think most of his preparations and some of his major adjustments are good. For the most part, he's good. He's a good coach, very good coach, right? And he prepares his teams generally well. He generally has good game plans. He develops talent really well. I think if you look at our two beloved seniors, you can see it's a testament to both their work ethic and this whole coaching staff, and that's a reflection of Matt Painter as well. But it's just those, when the ball is tipped, and when some of those either composure issues or some of the smaller, moving AJ around ball reversals and then getting it in, whether it's his players not understanding it or him not saying it in the huddle or what, him looking panicked, I don't know. But that's the biggest hole in Matt Painter, what we have right now.
That's because he is, I think as you put it in maybe one of our text conversations, a top 30 coach, top 30, 35 coach, right?
Yeah. He's the 30th or 35th best coach. And Justin actually made the list, and he floats somewhere between, I think you did 29 or 30 until about 45, because there are some really bad coaches out there. And then some of it is arguable, right? But that is generally where he lives. That's the thing,
right? He's not a Mike Krzyzewski, right? He's not a Bobby Knight. He's like a Gene Cady. I mean, really, he is. Gene Cady really did well in regular season because he knew the game really well. He knew Purdue. He had a culture that he instilled in Purdue. He knew the opponents really well, so he could prepare his teams really well. And then when it came to the tournament, one Elite Eight trip in however many years, right? That's Matt Painter, right? He does some things really, really well, but it's that last 10% that makes you wonder if he's ever going to pull Purdue over the hump.
And that's not a reason to get rid of him and find someone else and start new and start fresh, but that is something that we should keep talking about because that's how people get better. I think Painter has gotten better as a coach. I am a firm believer that coaches, like players, develop and get better and, can grow. But we see this year in and year, and especially this, I disagreed with your stuff in the tournament before, Justin, because it was we didn't have that much of a sample size. Like you say, the Kansas loss, I'd say, is a point of contention between us. I don't think we're ever going to really agree on that one, besides the fact that we probably shouldn't have blown that lead. But you say we shouldn't have blown that lead. I say it's Kansas, whatever. Last year, I chalked it up as an anomaly. Right? It was a once. How often do you blow 13-point leads with 3 minutes left? Well, the answer is twice.
Twice.
Right? The answer now is twice.
Once every 365 days. Yeah.
And at this point, it could be something that we could expect next year, because if we look at the team, we know I can tell you exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to stew about this loss, and this tournament is going to be ruined. Mainly, it's just going to be bittersweet. I'm going to be watching these games, and I'm just going to be bitter about it. Because Purdue at its best day can beat any of these teams. Like, I will go to my grave thinking.
Certainly in the Midwest region.
Exactly. We could have gotten to a Final Four, and that's whatever. But
that's
then
not whatever. That's 34 years of whatever.
But then this summer, I'm gonna go into it and say, hey, AJ's gone, but Isaac's there, and we got Haas, and we got Smotherman, and we got Carson Edwards coming in, and he's going to be that point guard, and he's going to be that alpha dog, and Vince Edwards is going to do it, and I'm going to sell myself on this again. Sure. I'm going to sell myself and you, and I'm going to sell Boiler down on this, and he's going to get angry at me in a year.
I don't know if you're going to buy what you're selling again.
He's going to get angry at me in a year when Purdue loses in triple overtime.
Classic. No. December when they lose to Notre Dame. They'll be furious with you.
It'll be
my God! When they lose in December, yeah, exactly. The annual
Gulf Coast, Purdue will be a 2 next year, and FGCU will beat them in the first round.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like, at this point, like, that's exactly what's going to happen. And I know that's going to happen. And I'm already angry about next year's triple overtime loss. Like, it's infuriating. And it's infuriating only because we're so close. Like, we're so close.
Okay,
I can feel it.
Are we that close?
Yes, absolutely.
Why are we that close?
Because this team
is... I feel more disillusioned with if we can't do something this year.
I don't think there's a question that we are close. Now, whether we can get whether we can get that 5-10%, that's the question. That's it, right? So we have the talent. Undeniably, we have the talent. We have the bodies. We have the right roster. We have the right chemistry. We have the right culture. We should be set up pretty well to finish in the top half of the Big Ten, which should set up pretty well for a top 3, 4, or 5 seed. That sets you up, and you're close. We have an advantage. We have an advantage that nobody else has, which is the best backup 7-foot center in the country.
He's a starter now.
Soon to be one of the 5 best centers in college basketball, probably next year.
I think he'll be very good.
Until something happens. Close is great. I love close. Close is fantastic. Let's like get a little closer, right? It's 2000 was an Elite 8. 1981 was a Final Four.
80, my friend.
80. I'm sorry. 1980. I wasn't born. I'm married. I got 3 kids. I'm a decade into my career. And I have never seen Purdue hit a Final Four. Like, so all this talk about close, like, it just doesn't mean as much anymore. It doesn't mean as much to be close.
That's fair.
But I have to push you a little more on that. Like, I don't know what. I guess it all depends on what you look at constituting close. Like, they haven't. They haven't won. So next March is their next chance at a tournament win. That would be 5 calendar years since their last tournament. Single tournament victory. You got to put 4 in a row together, and like, I don't know.
If you can't beat the Arkansas Little Rocks, if you can't put away a crappy Cincinnati team,
you can't put away.
If your coach shits the bed against Arkansas Little Rock, what's he going to do against UConn?
So that's.
Well, we've seen that before. Right? We've seen that before. We've seen that exact play.
I brought them up specifically.
When they get into those situations, there's no chance. I'm sorry, not this. I don't have any confidence that Painter against a seasoned like a Kevin Ollie.
Kevin Ollie's not even that seasoned. That's the thing.
He won a national title. He won a title.
But he's like a 4-year. That's the thing. He's like coached for 4 years. And he's going to be an NBA coach. He's going to be an NBA coach soon. And he's very good at his job. But it's like Paint's a 10-year veteran, right? He's been coaching for 12 years. I don't even know how long.
Look at coaches. Look at coaches, how long they spend at a current job before they get to a Final Four. It always happens within the first 6 years.
I don't know. I mean, Bo Ryan, you see, that's the thing.
Okay,
we're hoping.
okay.
Well, we have always kind of hoped that Painter turns into Bo Ryan, right?
So all you have to do is wait another decade, and we'll get
for him to shrivel up a little bit. Yeah.
I mean,
but Bo Ryan, to be fair, it took him 13 years. Right? I mean, like, we all think Bo Ryan's been coaching, or Bo Ryan coached Wisconsin forever. He only coached really 14 years. And
he built that program. Like, the program was...
And he's great, and Coach Painter's great. But is he? I don't know.
He's good.
It's that
I'm not going to stop following Purdue, right? I'm not going to stop rooting for Purdue. I'm not going to stop getting my hopes up every summer. But at the same time, like, I mean, results matter more than anything else, and results have not been there. The baby boilers were wasted. AJ and Ray were wasted. How many more excellent is Caleb Swanigan going to be wasted, right? How many more excellent recruits are going to hang a Sweet 16 banner, right? Like, hopefully at least one more. But like, it would be nice to go to an Elite Eight, right? It'd be nice to. We're not even talking about like Big Ten titles. The fact that IU just tied Purdue for the most Big Ten titles in Big Ten history, like, let's not even talk about that. The postseason success just isn't there, and it's really hard to keep like going back to the well. Like, oh yeah, we're close next year.
That's the frustrating part. We wouldn't be angry if we weren't close.
By the way, this is a complete aside. I saw this pop up the other day, and I just wanted to go look and make sure I wasn't dreaming of things. But, you know, we just mentioned Kevin Ollie. You know that loss? So they lost to Kansas, right? That's his first NCAA tournament loss ever.
Yes. He is one of, like, I think 3 coaches to win their first 7 NCAA tournament games.
Ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. And you know what else that got me thinking about? Because I don't really want to talk about Purdue anymore. Was UConn the worst NCAA tournament champion winner of the modern era? I would argue them, or maybe the '83 NC State team that I know you guys were not around for, but remember that team was a ridiculous Valvano team that ridiculously beat Olajuwon and Drexler, which makes no sense at all. Like, or maybe the '85 Villanova team.
What was the other team?
'85 Villanova, who beat Georgetown by shooting 80% in the championship game. 80%. They were a 9 seed that goes to the final game and shooting 80%. It's ridiculous.
Butler would have been. I mean, like the Butler team that UConn beat would have been the worst national.
Wasn't Gordon Hayward on that team?
No, that was the second year, and I watched that year very closely. Believe me. But
that's the second year when they were like a 9 or an 8 or something.
Yeah, and they had Shelvin Mack and Matt Howard, and that was the team.
And they also had Brad Stevens.
And they also had Brad Stevens.
That was the year that Matt Howard got fouled at the opponent's free throw line, shooting a 3, where he hit 3 free throws.
It's the Matt Howard rule
against Pitt.
It's the Matt Howard rule. Pitt, I live here. They are very aware of that.
They're still pissed about that, as they should be.
They're still pissed about the Scotty Reynolds shot. I mean, like Pitt's pretty. They've experienced their share of heartache with Jamie Dixon.
And the other thing, since we're just talking about random stuff, did you realize what happened in that Northern Iowa A&M game? Did you realize it was a 13-point lead with 40 seconds to go?
Yeah, and yeah.
13 points, 40, not with 40 seconds. That's almost impossible. I just watched the 2-minute clip of how it happened, and that's incredible.
Hey, so actually that makes me feel better. Guys, it could always be worse.
Exactly. Could be worse. If you have 13 in the final minute, oh, dear Lord.
No, it couldn't, because who has blown 2 13-point leads in back-to-back years?
I don't even remember. I don't think Purdue was up 13 last year.
All that matters.
They were up 7 with 45 seconds to go.
No. Go look. We were up 13. Don't look, please. Don't look.
If you have 7 in the final minute and you don't win,
45 seconds.
That's
45 seconds.
Yes, that's brutal. That is.
All that matters is that it's a record. Purdue's in the record book. It doesn't matter for what. It just matters.
Record makers. record breakers. And then today I saw photos of Austin Appleby at spring practice for Florida.
Yeah.
When he leads Florida to an SEC championship game appearance
against Danny Etling and LSU.
I'm sorry. What are we talking about here? I'm unfamiliar. I'm unfamiliar with
That's
this.
Right. That's right. Basketball's over. We can move on to spring practice.
I've been reading about Purdue from like some of the national media types, like what this team needs, which came as a shock to me because I was pretty sure they closed the program down, but apparently they haven't.
Tragic.
And we're coming back. We're doing it again, folks. But like they do, like most of these like sporting news types do the whole position of need thing, and it's pretty much like they don't ever come out and say it.
Put a picture of the football field.
It's like everything. They're like, listen, Purdue is an offensive line, a quarterback, wide receivers, running backs, a defensive line, and a secondary away from like really making some noise in the Big Ten.
Winning a couple games.
That's all we need. That's all we need.
So, but what worries me, about Purdue basketball is that this casts kind of a pall. You were talking, Anish, how you'll end up talking yourself into it, and you're right. I made that analogy about football even. Purdue football, maybe not now, but up until like a year or so ago, every summer, especially August, they come back and I'm like, "Ooh, football's coming," and it's probably just an excitement for NCAA football more than.
Let me tell you what I'm not talking myself into this fall.
Here's the exact moment I fell off the Purdue train. We had a Boiled Sports Handsome Hour, and we were talking about the Cincinnati game, and we're like, we got to keep it. We're going to keep it close, and if we can pull it out, then we'll. And we went in there, and Cincinnati beat the shit out of us by like 50 points, and I'm like, so much for expectations. Now on into the
first game, it has not gotten better. That was not an anomaly. What worries me about basketball, though, is these 2 years. I know that kids are more resilient, young guys, and the roster turns over more and all that, and it's true. But I believe this starts to stick with you now, right? And now you start to say it almost doesn't matter what happens next season until you get to March. And I know that's counter to Anish's thinking, but it's almost like these guys now are going to need to prove it. And now aren't you going to worry every close tournament game you get into?
How does it not stick in the back of your mind when you're playing? When you're playing in March and you go up by 8 and they cut it to 3, how do you not think to yourself, "Oh shit, it's happening again"?
Well, right? So I think we have a player now. We have a player in Vince who hopefully is that guy that can take over, right? Is the guy that can play pseudo point guard, ball handler, like Denzel Valentine type, right? I mean Denzel Valentine light, like guy who will have the ball in his hands at all times. And Isaac is a good option, but the best player on the court is a dude that can have the ball at all times, get his own shot, whatever. Like you now have a guy that can take over. And I think we were talking about this, and I want to get you guys' thoughts on it on the record, but I think there's no. I think I can fairly guarantee that there's no bigger AJ Hammond's fan than the guy that's talking into the microphone right now, right? Like on earth. Like I think AJ Hammond's mother, who favorites everything that is on Twitter, said great about AJ Hammond's, and me, and that's it. That's the club,
that's
right?
The list.
And then Ray Davis, everybody's favorite. I mean, everybody loves Ray. He's the captain, right? He's the all-time captain of Purdue, right? Probably the best leader Coach Painter has ever had, him or Kramer or Lou Jack, right? But is there something that leaves this team with them and the way that the DNA, the fundamental DNA of this team will completely change, an era will change, that maybe next year's team will have a completely different psyche, a completely stronger psyche, because Caleb Swanigan doesn't care at all. Like Caleb, like AJ would sometimes get down on himself. Caleb is just a straight line. Not sure he has a pulse. Like I think he's just a robot, a rebounding, big-butted robot that takes up space in the post, right? Vince Edwards is super fiery and super leadershipy and whatever. He can take the Ray Davis man. But like, oh yeah. Like, I mean, but he's the guy. I think he's the voice of the team this year. It wasn't. I think Ray is a little like when Ray snaps. Ray's like that dad. Ray's the dad of the team, right? He doesn't say a lot, but when he says something, like that's the rule, right? But is there something that leaves with Ray Davis and with AJ Hammonds that changes this team enough to get over that hump? Or does something leave and then we're not even close? Like I don't
Here's the
know.
thing. This while Hammonds has been the best player on Purdue for the last several years, and while Ray has been the unquestioned leader the last several years, the fact is that the guys coming back have been integral parts of these last two teams as well. These aren't guys sitting on the bench waiting for their turn. These are guys who are out there making the mistakes in these games as well. And it can go one of two ways. Either they learn from those mistakes and Vince Edwards comes back and never fails to sit on the ball or move the ball with 5 seconds left in the game, or it sticks in their mind, and this is something that damages them early. Because sometimes that failure either motivates people and it makes them better, or it holds them down. I think that's what happened with, a guy like Ronnie Johnson, right? He had to play too much too early, right? And you learn bad habits, and you approach things a certain way, and maybe it sticks and maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
With this team being, I mean, next year the team is Vince's, and the other guys on the team, the quiet leadership guy, all of a sudden is Caleb Swanigan, and the fiery guy, whatever, or the dude, the big personality on the team is Isaac Haas. So, like, with those three, do we feel bad that it's those three's team? I mean, like, I think we love all three of them, and I think there are very few holes we could point in either their games or their attitudes, or really, like, those three are a fantastic foundation for any college basketball team. I mean, honestly, like, you put those three on any college basketball team, and they're going to be a top 25 team, right? But is there enough around them? Do they have what it takes to carry it? I think I'm confident that they're the type to learn and not wallow, right, in these mistakes. But you're right. I think every single close game now is gonna feel like I'm not gonna be riding as emotionally as I did this year, because it's going to be like, well, what happens in March? Like, is it going to be any different, or is it just going to completely like freeze in March? Are they going to stop thinking in the Big Ten tournament? Are they going to just crap out in Indianapolis? I get all of these things. Like, we're going to be saying, yeah, sure, 25, 26 wins. Like, we're going to be finding faults, and then all of a sudden you get jaded, right? I mean, like, this is a jading loss. Like, that's the worst part about it.
It's like golf. I'm not a big golfer, but right, like you can get the yips, right? You go out to the driving range and you're hitting things great, but then you step onto the course and all of a sudden there's a hitch in your swing, right? Because it's in your head. Is there going to be hitch in this team swing next year? I don't know. I hope not. But you're going.
I don't think during this season. I don't.
That's the thing, yeah. But
I agree. These guys are. You got to have a short memory, and they're young. And I agree, Caleb Swanigan is not the kind of guy to carry this with him. Isaac Haas had nothing to do with it, either of the losses at the end of the season, last 2 years. And Vince, I agree. I think he's strong. I think he's a good leader. And you're going to have guys like Smotherman coming back, and I don't know. Shaquille Taylor may play a bigger role. I don't have any worry about that. I worry about getting into the exact scenario. That's all I'm saying. I just think a year from now we're going to be looking at this tournament, and Purdue may have, let's say it's a similar season, which I would, I know it's a long way off, but I would argue it'll probably be a similar year, top 5 in the conference, 25 wins, ranked most of the season. I can see all that happening, and that's great. But it's the bare minimum if you want to be a serious program. And yeah. And this is one of those things. It's like, and pick your sport, right? That you lose badly in the finals of any sport, or in the first round of any sport, right? Painfully, you get upset, you lose to the 8th seed or something like that. All year, what drives the really good teams and programs and athletes is that drive to fix that, to change it and not let it happen again next year. And I guess we'll see, right? Because we're not going to know. We're not going to know until this time next year if they're any different at all.
To that point, I mean, so the example, I mean, I'm, NBA, my DNA is NBA, right? So the example that I come up with, both as a worst and best case scenario, is Dirk Nowitzki, right? So in 2006, Dirk is the best player on earth. He doesn't get the MVP, but he's the best player on earth, and goes to the finals and is up 2-0 on Dwayne Wade and Shaq, and then Wade takes over and they win 4 straight games and they win the finals. And then he comes back that next year and continues to be the best player on earth, runs away with the MVP, and then loses in the first round of the playoffs to the We Believe Warriors team, the Steven Jackson Warriors team. And it could turn out like that. It could turn out like 2011, where Dirk comes back in and nobody really expects it, and then just lights the world on fire and beats LeBron James in the finals. Like it's weird. Like it.
Or it could be 1995 Nick Anderson missing 4 free throws at the end of a playoff game.
And then that signals, and that's the end of the era, right? Like that's the end of that Magic era. Right? I mean, those missed free throws signaled the end of the Orlando Shaq and Penny Magic era. Yes. And who knows how it's going to be, but it could go any of these ways. And as I know, at least me, I'm going to be thinking about that every single game. And that sucks. Like, so you can't have fun when you're watching that. Like, this year, I had so much fun watching this.
I don't know.
You're young.
Well, I'm gonna sell myself on it. I'm gonna sell myself on it, and then it could happen again in March. And
here's what gives me hope, though. There's a lot that gives you hope, right? Vince Edwards, I think he can create off the dribble, which is something like literally no one else on Purdue can do this year. He's only going to get better. Basil Smotherman can squat, 800 pounds. He's a beast. If he can play defense at that level and maintain that athleticism. If the shooters get better, as the cost gets better, this team could be good. But there's still like this little bit of hey, Purdue's up 4 with 2.5 minutes left, and I don't really want to watch the end of this game, because
I don't know. I think Vince is mentally tough enough, but it's like you're gonna have questions about it every night.
But you sit there with your little Vince notebook and you write out Mr. Niche Edwards with a little heart around it, and you just look at it and sigh.
I do. I
tweeted after the game that I thought he was a future pro. I mean, he's got all the tools, and he could be an absolute monster. And we get him for 2 more years.
Maybe.
I think there's a lot to be positive about, but
he's not going anywhere. And if he does go somewhere after next year, it's because Purdue had an amazing year. Right.
I'll gladly trade.
I'll
take it.
But I think Caleb's going to improve a lot. Can we for a second, any refs that are listening to this podcast, because we know all of the referees in college basketball, all of you people who do a fantastic job screwing up everything, does Isaac get punished for being the size of a sequoia? Like, that flagrant foul? Not a flagrant foul. I mean, that's one of the things. Like, Isaac is refereed differently than everybody else in the country. Vince still shows that, for one half he's here, one half he's not. Basil Smotherman, we've never seen him play a lick of defense before. And he hasn't played basketball in a year and a half. Carson Edwards, it could be Ronnie Johnson. There are as many positives about next year, which, to be fair, my expectations for next year, exactly the same as the expectations for this year. I want 25 wins, I want an appearance in the Big Ten Tournament championship game, and I want a Sweet 16. And I don't think that's changed. And we had this conversation earlier in the year that even though we lose 2 talented players, I don't think that changes. But, there are questions. There are still questions. And this will be a future podcast because we've been ranting for 6 hours at this point. But will Kendall Stevens even be on the team? I think he will be. I don't think he'll leave. Will he be the same guy that we were all expecting? I don't know.
Can you imagine if he is? What that would do?
Can you see how easily it is to see that he isn't? I mean, like just the flip side of that. Like
Yeah, but you an entire off season of work and then the pre-con games to see if he's got it back and build I mean, yeah, no, I don't think it's likely he's going to go back to what he was. But I'm saying, what if he could be a significant contributor again in some way? Gosh, what is that? That makes you a deep.
If 2 years, that would be 2 years that everything breaks for Purdue.
Yep. And then who? What are we questioning? Then let's say we're going into March with 25 wins. And all of a sudden, we'll be writing. I can already, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write it and save it in the draft so that I don't have to write it next year. Hey, we were talking about all this and everything broke our way and we got great seeding in March. Can Matt Painter do it? Like, we'll be writing the same thing. And if we have a major injury, if Vince Edwards tears his ACL, we have that column in our archives too. So, like, what? I don't know. We're so close. That's why I'm saying we're so close. But I don't know what else. I don't know what else.
Everyone is close. You make it. Everyone is. We're no closer.
As close as Foley Dickinson, man. We're as close to the Final Four as they were. First round.
You know what? Florida Gulf Coast has had a better last 5 years in the NCAA tournament,
but not a better last 10. I mean, and that's what I'm saying.
I think they were D1 10 years ago, actually. But anyway, go on.
But that's why when you have these many chances for the last decade and nothing happens, that's what I'm saying is that we're close. We've had a top 3 team in the country. We've had a consensus number 1 team by all measures.
No.
At one point in the season, we were a consensus.
They were never ranked number 1.
They were ranked. No, I mean like 1 seed in the tournament. So like in February.
You're reaching.
When were they a 1 seed? What are you talking about?
So in February, right before Rob tore his ACL, we were a national title
in February. Favorite. Guess what? So was Iowa this year, right?
Ooh.
Iowa ran through the top third of the Big Ten to start the season, and everyone was talking about is Iowa going to be the number 1 that comes out of the Big Ten.
But are they going to do this? Are they going to do the same thing next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and collapse?
They did the last 2 years.
Probably not. Probably not. I mean, Matt Painter has had, and this is from the most pro Matt Painter guy at Boat Sports. Matt Painter has had 2009 where it was surprising, and they made a Sweet 16 run, and everybody's like they're on the precipice. And then 2010, I guess we can forgive the injury bug. It happens once every now and then. In 2011, unforgivable loss. 2012, borderline unforgivable loss. In Robbie Hummel's last year. The 13 and 14 debacles. Like, how many times are we going to be close and give it up? That's my question.
That we've had, the sample size is large enough.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, is that that's why I'm saying we're close, is because Matt Painter can get us to that point year after year after year, but he hasn't been able to show the next step, and I do think it's in him, but I don't know, like, I'm gonna go insane before it happens, right? Like, it's just, that's the part. Your
children are going to go insane.
That's what you're going to become, like the rest of us grizzled veterans. That's what's going to happen. You're gonna have the life squeezed out of you.
But it's just like that, but we wouldn't be this frustrated if we weren't close. That's my point, is that we wouldn't be this frustrated if we all thought that, oh, it's gravy. But we have all the pieces. We have it.
Okay.
I don't know. It's
at some point, like, potential stops mattering. Right. And results matter. Results matter. You've had plenty of opportunities. And nothing has come of it.
I don't think potential stops mattering, but I think you start to, you don't get the benefit. Yeah, exactly. You don't get the benefit of the doubt. It feels
like there's a reason why this team has not done better than it has, and yeah. But you know what? We've got about a couple minutes left. We'll end this on a positive note. I'm positive for next year because I know they'll play better than the football team. And the fact is that we've got at least 2, possibly 3 pros future pros coming back on the team next year. So I mean,
doesn't that make it more frustrating to you?
No. We're ending on a positive note.
But that makes it more frustrating. It's not like you can say, "Well, they just didn't have the horses. I understand what happened."
Close.
They do.
We're close.
They're not close to what?
Close to what? Close doesn't
We
matter.
have to.
I don't care about close anymore, Anish.
Yeah,
I want to see them win.
That's
I don't
fair.
care about close.
That's fair. We're ending on happiness, Vince Edwards.
We're landing on happiness. Why are
Vince
you
Edwards.
happy?
Vince,
Okay.
is
Jay, what you got?
What's the question?
Why are you happy? Say something happy. Are you happy that this podcast is almost over? That counts.
I'm not happy about Purdue. Purdue athletics is in a bad spot, I think. I just, there's a lot of things that aren't going to change, and you know, there are the weird loyalists out there who imply that you're not a real boiler if you're not blindly loyal. But then we've started to hear things from former athletes.
Yeah, how about that?
You know, we got a message, an anonymous message. I won't even say what sport the person played or when, but they said they think that the problem will be out of there by next June. So, like, when you hear stuff like that, like you know, so I hate to say it this way, but I like hearing stuff like that because it validates some of the frustration, and this bunker mentality is complete horseshit that Purdue puts up and acts as though, you know, you have no right to expect more or to want more.
How dare you?
Yeah, I mean, it's that's the stuff I get really tired of, and that in an issue, you know, we never even got into this in this podcast, but the fact that at no point has anyone said Matt Painter should be fired, and you get endless amounts of comments of people telling you that, you know, well, you know, you're wrong. I don't want to fire him. Oh, okay.
I just want him to do better.
Yeah.
I would kill for him to do better. I mean, like, I want him to be the guy. I want him to be the guy that, you know, that brought it back. Like, that's the thing, is that the guy, my year going to Purdue was the Baby Boilers. Like, I was the same year as the Baby Boilers. So for Matt Painter to do it is like he's my guy, right? So why wouldn't any of us want Matt Painter to be the one to do it? We're waiting for Conzo Martin to come in. He's the same guy who apparently, and take this for what it's worth, doesn't run his program with as much discipline as Matt Painter does. Like, so Matt Painter is the guy, and we all know that he is, and we're all just dying for him to do it, to live up to it, and maybe we'll all just die. Like, maybe that's it. Maybe we'll all just die.
Well, I tried to end this on a positive note, but it ended with Anish having an existential crisis. But I would like to thank you, if you listen to this, for hating yourself as much as we hate ourselves to get through this whole podcast. So this was, I don't even know which number of the Purdue basketball beat. We'll come back in the summer after the meds kick in.
We'll be back. We'll sell ourselves on it. We'll be back. Thanks for listening, guys.